Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be reviewing the Death Note manga series and the anime adaptation of it. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the series, there are actually two different very prominent formats to read it in. The original edition is made up of 12 volumes, while the edition I have, which is the Black edition, has 6 volumes, each of which has 2 of the original volumes. So just very quickly, as a point of reference, Black Edition Volume 1 has the original volumes 1 and 2. Black Edition Volume 2 has the original editions 3 and 4. Black Edition Volume 3 has the original editions 5 and 6. Black Edition Volume 4 has the original volumes 7 and 8. Black Edition Volume 5 has the original volumes 9 and 10. And Black Edition Volume 6 has the original volumes 11 and 12. So Death Note is about a 16-year-old student in Japan named Light Yagami. Randomly one day he discovers a notebook, but this is not your everyday notebook. It's actually a notebook with the ability to kill. Anyone whose name is written inside the notebook will die. When Light discovers that the notebook has this power, he decides to use it to rid the world of people that he deems evil and unworthy of living in the world with the good people. Of course, when a bunch of criminals start to die, the police catch on, and they end up enlisting the help of an independent consultant only known as L. And thus, a battle of wits between two geniuses has begun. And overall, I absolutely loved this series. One thing that I can definitely say about it is that it's very consistent. And typically this is one of my largest complaints about series, because if it's a longer series like the Death Note series, typically it has its ups and downs, and there's at least 1 or 2 books that I feel are subpar to the rest of them. And while obviously I have volumes that I liked more than other volumes, I didn't give any of the volumes less than 4 stars out of 5 or 8 stars out of 10. They all received either 4 or 5 stars on Goodreads. And for me, that's a mark of a very consistent series. I really enjoyed every single volume. I thought the plot was really great across the board. It is a really long series, and though it does take a while to finally get to the resolution, it never felt like anything in the series was arbitrary or just thrown in. Everything made sense and was really interesting to read and to watch. The single complaint that I kind of have plot-wise is something that happened in the middle of Black Edition Volume 4, which would have been kind of at the end of the original Volume 7. I think if you've read the series, you probably know what I'm talking about because it's a pretty major event, and I haven't really come to terms with whether I don't like it in terms of the story or if I don't like it for my own personal reasons. And then something happened in the second half of Volume 4 Black Edition, which would be the original Volume 8, to kind of remedy the situation, but I wasn't really sure how I felt about that either. But as I got further in the series, I began to kind of understand why that resolution was chosen, and I began to appreciate it more, but initially when I read it, I was not a fan. But like I said, now that I have read the whole series, I like that decision and it makes sense, but it did initially infuriate me. One of the strongest aspects for me about the series was the characters. I completely fell in love with a bunch of them. All of the characters are really interesting and very intricate, especially the main character, Light, but there are also a bunch of characters that have really interesting little quirks that you really grow to love. Personally, my favorite character was L. I thought that he was one of the more fun characters to follow because he is one of those characters that has some quirks, and you grow to really appreciate those quirks in him, and he was definitely my favorite character. Another of my favorite characters is one that's introduced a little bit later in the series, and his name is Nier. He's adorable and also kind of quirky like L, and that made me also really love him. And then there's an investigator named Matsuda who I really love. He's a lot of fun to follow throughout the series too. But I would definitely say that the most interesting and intricate character is Light himself. He has this very interesting dichotomy about him where on the one hand he's killing people, but on the other hand he's trying to create this world full of just good people. And it's very interesting how he thinks about this in his own mind. Also, I feel like this is probably pretty standard for Death Note fans, but there's this character named Misa who's really annoying. Like, she's definitely my least favorite character. I really don't like her. Another thing that I really love about the series is that it's really, really smart. The key players in the series are basically geniuses, and they're constantly coming up with these elaborate plots and schemes to try to catch the other. However, occasionally this can be a little problematic because sometimes it gets a little bit too complex And I consider myself to be a fairly intelligent person, but there were times that I had to reread passages just to understand what exactly one of these characters was scheming or trying to explain, because there were times when it was just very complicated. I always ended up understanding what was going on in the end, but just be forewarned that this series can get very complicated and you definitely need to be paying attention to what is going on, or else you will be very confused at some points. So like I said, overall, I just completely fell in love with this series. It's really consistent, the plot is really interesting, I love the characters, and it's just a very smart series. So before I jump into my discussion on the anime, I'm going to run through all of the Black Edition volumes and tell you what rating I gave them. I gave Volume 1 9 stars out of 10, which translates to 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. I gave Volume 2 8 stars out of 10, which translates to 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. I gave Volume 3 8.5 stars out of 10, which translates to 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. Volume 4 was my least favorite volume, but I gave it 8 stars out of 10, which translates to 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. I gave Volume 5 8.5 stars out of 10, which translates to 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. And I gave Volume 6 9.5 stars out of 10, which translates to 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. Okay, so now moving on to my discussion about the anime. So all 37 episodes of the Death Note anime are available to stream on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be broken up into seasons in any way, but the theme song and opening does change about midway through the series, so I guess maybe there are 2 seasons, but Netflix doesn't really show that. Also, there is an ability to change it from Japanese to English language. I didn't realize that when I first started watching, and then I discovered that duh move. But I would also recommend, even if you are listening to it in English, to turn on the English subtitles, because there will be moments when Japanese writing will pop up on the screen, and if you don't have the subtitles on, you won't know what it's saying, but if you do have the subtitles on, it will translate it in the subtitles. So I watched the majority of the anime after finishing the manga series. I want to say that I was maybe 5-ish episodes in by the time that I finished the manga, and then I kind of just binge watched the rest of the anime, because I really enjoyed the anime and I found it incredibly easy to binge watch. Like, I would get to the end of the episode, and even though I would know what was about to happen, it left off on such a cliffhanger that I felt the need to continue on, even though I knew what was gonna happen. I would also say that the anime is definitely easier to understand than the manga at some of the more complex moments. There were a couple things that were made a little bit simpler to understand for the anime, but I just personally find in general that things are easier to understand when explained in a video or auditory format. So in that way, the anime made it a lot easier to understand some of the more complex moments. And overall, it's just a very true to manga adaptation. Like, there was not extra stuff added in that was unnecessary. It was just a very good adaptation. Very little was changed, and when things were changed, it was very, very small and minimal changes that were almost unnoticeable. The only thing that bothered me was the ending, because there were some slightly more substantial changes made, but honestly, it still wasn't that big of a deal, and I still really enjoyed it. So overall, I would give a big thumbs up to both the manga and the anime, because they were amazing, and I would definitely recommend this as like a first manga or anime for someone to read or watch, because this is my personal first manga and I found it very easy to get into. So that is it for my review of the Death Note manga and anime. If you have read the series or seen the anime, let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on it. As always, I will leave links down in the description to my blog, Twitter, and Goodreads. Please add me as a friend on Goodreads. I would love to be friends with all of you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!